Guten Tag. Welcome in again to another edition of Musings from the Mountains, the video podcast by WVSports.com. I am Keenan Cummings, managing editor.
And I'm Patrick Kotnik, staff writer.
Shout out to our man behind the camera, the wonderful wizard, Tyson Murray. Check out his work if you haven't already. If you've watched this, you've obviously seen it, and it's some quality stuff. Going through some important notes here. We met with Neil Brown today. This is one of his favorite weeks of the year, not only because of Thanksgiving, not only because of football. It's a bonding type deal. You got the team together. It's the most like a pro situation that you're going to have. There's no school. It's pretty much focused completely on football. They're going to have a lot of team activities, team gatherings, team meetings, team whatever adjective you can throw after that. So a lot of team stuff. The moral this week, though, for West Virginia is trying to hold it together. They're 4-7. A bowl game is probably not happening this year outside of some crazy scenario where they get to 5-7 and their APR is good enough. But we're just going to keep adding the qualifiers at the end of that. It's probably not likely. So this week, they're kind of playing for pride, Pat.
Yeah, it's a great audition, like Neil Brown said, for guys who want to play in the pros. Guys like Colton McKivitz, even mentioned a guy like Rex Unahara, one of the most consistent players for West Virginia this year playing long snapper. But yeah, when you don't have a postseason bowl game lined up right now, the real strong emphasis on just enjoying the week, especially for the team's 22 seniors. Didn't go out the way they wanted to at home. Gives them another chance to end the season on a high note. Yeah,
we'll look at TCU more in depth in our preview, but just looking at some of Neil's comments today, some interesting things is asking about recruiting, and I think recruiting is important this time of the year. You're entering that period where the early signing day is not very far away. It opens up December 18th. It's through the 20th. West Virginia has 14 commitments. We'll get into their latest edition here in a bit. But they still got some needs. They have some guys they need to fill. They need to get some offensive linemen. They need to get some defensive linemen. They need to get some defensive backs. That's going to be the focus. The December 6th, December 13th. That's going to be your two giant official visit weekends with prospects that are still on the board. We'll have lists over at WVSports.com. A lot of different guys are coming. I already started to compile some of those. So it'll be interesting to see who makes it, who's on the board. But West Virginia's got some work to do with recruiting.
And it'll be full focus for the staff right after the TCU game. I thought it was pretty interesting how Neil Brown said, in the past, when he was at Troy, when it came to bowl practices, you're allowed 15, but when it came to starters and the guys who were actually going to play in the bowl game, they went pretty much no contact, and it was a really good period for the reserve developmental squads to really get some contact practices in and get those guys better. They lose out on they'll lose out on that this year. Obviously, with West Virginia most likely not going to be in the bowl game, but on the flip side, they'll have more time to focus full time on recruiting rather than splitting it between practices and recruiting if they're playing in the bowl game.
Yeah, and that's a misnomer anymore. Those bowl practices are invaluable, but they're more invaluable for what you get with your developmental guys. That's your guys you give a lot of reps to, a lot of 20, 30 minutes portion of practice to get those guys ready for the next season. Neil said even at Troy, they didn't even wear pads with a lot of their starters, getting ready for the next year. So that's what you really miss out on. And everyone always talks about the 15 bowl practices, but the way the recruiting calendar has changed and everything's been sped up, it's hard to even get 15 practices in. They usually get around 12, 13 at most. That was a topic of big concern last year with Dana Holgorsen, but really it's just all around college football. It's something I tried to drive home on the blue lot at times, and now it's something that you're even hearing from the new head coach. So I think that's the new normal for these bowl practices. It's not necessarily as it used to be. Personnel notes, Quan Tell reigns. He's got a decision to make. Did not suit up against Oklahoma State. It's still kind of up in the air what his future is going to be, whether he decides to enter that portal that is forming all
phenomenon.
Over. Yeah, that is forming everywhere and sucking players into it. No, it's just a list of a database that people can put their name into to transfer, but he might possibly be on there. I think he's still trying to figure out what he wants to do. Hybrid safety type linebacker. He's kind of caught in between. I think if he does stay, he's got to try to find a spot that fits him. But more, it's kind of cut and dry. West Virginia's got one game left. It's about pride at this point. It's about seeing what West Virginia can do on the field and trying to close the season on a high note. You have to like the effort this team has put forward over the last couple games. Aside from that embarrassment of a first quarter against Texas Tech, really the last three games, this team has played very well. Got one win, could have had two. Maybe they get the ball in from an inch against Oklahoma State. We're talking about a different game. Sam James replay be damned. But that's where it is. Recruiting, though, I do want to talk about. West Virginia got big news. in the form of Jackie Matthews, defensive back, one of those positions we talked about they had to fill. West Virginia now has another in the class in Matthews. 6 foot, 180 pounds, having a tremendous season at Mississippi Gulf Coast. He's going to play for the national championship at that level. He has 5 interceptions, 49 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. You watch his tape, he's everywhere. He's just one of those guys that he has a nose for the ball. And that's cliche to say, but you watch it. He's coming from the second level. They mix him at safety, mix him at corner. Always getting onto the ball. A good tackler for his position too, which obviously is probably about as good as you can come when you're looking for a cornerback. He emerged largely off West Virginia going to go see him in October. They offered him a few weeks later, took his official visit this past weekend, and now there's 14 in the class, Pat.
Yeah, and it's definitely a huge get for West Virginia. We talk about cornerback. They'll be down 2 starters for next season in Keith Washington and Hakeem Bailey. Now, they still got some options there with Tay Mayo, freshman right now, another freshman, Nick Troy Fortune. There's also Drayshawn Miller, who's missed this whole regular season with injury. So definitely a big get for West Virginia. And we talked about that secondary. We've talked about defense all year with missed tackles being an issue. Good tackler for him being a cornerback. They'll definitely be much needed for this West Virginia defense.
Yeah, I think his versatility is what's going to play with West Virginia. He can move around in Vic's scheme. He could be a safety, could be a nickelback, could be a corner, a lot of different things. And the most exciting part about this commitment is he's a December graduate. So he'll be here in January, have a full off season.
That's
and then,
huge.
Yeah, have a full off season in the program, go through spring ball, and try to put himself in position to possibly see the field next year with 2 years left. So 14 commitments for West Virginia. It's going to heat up a lot more here in the coming weeks. Neil even dropped a couple hints today, said maybe they add to that class in the next 8 to 10 days. We'll see. But there are some guys that have been on the fence for a while that could be making decisions, so it's something to keep an eye on. But we'll get into TCU and what's left in our final preview edition here in a few days. You're coming soon. But tune in again. If this is your first time watching, go ahead and hit subscribe. We regularly do these videos. We're going to try to do some for basketball as well, kind of recaps each week and diving into things. Recruiting is also going to be a focus. But thanks for tuning in again. This has been another fun and safe edition of Musings from the Mountains.